So today I'm gonna do something a little bit different where I have these spreads from my recent trip to Japan, where you can check them out down in the links below to see what an art career journey together with us would be like. If you missed out on the first two Japan group trips, fret not, we have another one in spring 2025 with just a few remaining spots left. But if you can't make it to that one, we also have one in Greece in May of 2025. So today I just wanted to talk about how working in the animation industry kind of ruined me as an artist, but you know, it's not all that black and white. But as I've been spending the past year and a half kind of taking the more independent route, I've definitely realized that the way I work as an artist has definitely been majorly influenced by the animation industry. And it's not to say that it's all bad, but you know, if you live your life based on animation industry rules of being an artist, it's a lot more limiting than just being an artist in general, obviously. So without further ado, I'm gonna get started on these spreads and get straight into it. So first and foremost, in case if y'all didn't know already, the animation industry tends to gatekeep what is considered good or bad art. For example, obviously, if you're creating work for a fine art piece, it's not going to be that well suited for animation, but you know, at the same time, there are a lot of projects at the end of the day that probably do have a great idea behind it, but according to executives at studios, they are the ones that determine what they think will perform well or not. So that's why these days you see a lot less original projects, and most of the things you see are based off of pre-existing IP, such as books, games, or things that have proven to do well. And if you come into the studio with an original idea, and it could be like the best next big idea, there's still a pretty strong chance that it might not be considered good because it didn't hit certain numbers or rankings in sales. So that's just one of the frustrations of being an artist in animation these days, is if you do have an idea, who knows if it will ever really get picked up, at least in the immediate future. A lot of directors these days are just kind of being assigned to pre-existing IP pitches and stuff. But the thing is that all of these great IP works that have been done before, they all started off as original projects themselves that someone just took a chance on. And now like the market is just a little bit too overly saturated, I think, which is why people are less likely to take a chance on things they're less familiar with. So yeah, a lot of studios tend to gatekeep what they think would be considered good versus bad. And they still probably would choose a show with pre-existing IP that doesn't perform well over an original project that maybe has like a 50% chance of doing really well. Which brings me to the next point, is that the animation industry is not always reflective of what actually will stay relevant or popular. Because here's the thing, when studios pick up a project and start working on it, there's still so much time left before it gets released. So just because something is trending and popular by the time it gets developed into an idea in the first place, by the time it's released, there could always be an offset of whether or not if people still care about this idea or think it's funny or interesting. So there's certain shows or movies that I know of that try to really milk certain memes or trends at some point, thinking that, oh, when this show comes out, it's gonna be like a hit because people are so into this now. But we're living in a day and age where trends and memes and all of this stuff are pretty much trending for 1 week, and then by the next week, it's no longer relevant, which in that case, I think social media is a better platform for that type of stuff if you're going to do trendy stuff. And if you're gonna do something that's in the animation world, you should do something that will withstand the test of time. But you know, certain people in leadership, I think, are just too wrapped up in the business of things and don't really spend as much time to consider what people genuinely need in a show or movie outside of just its superficial, I don't even know if it's like shock value or just prefrontal cortex stimulation of just seeing something that's just popular or was popular at a time, so it catches people's attention. So then the next thing, this is more about working in animation as an artist, is stability is kind of a myth if you didn't notice that already. So I mean, stability I think is a myth in any job. Like, you know, even though people who are working these really supposedly stable 9-to-5 jobs now, it's like, I think the past year has kind of shown us all that none of us are truly safe in this world from that. What I notice is whenever you start getting interviews from jobs, and as you're approaching that, like, oh, you're probably gonna get it stage, people in the HR team tend to boast about like, oh yeah, we're one of those studios that, you know, once we finish a project, we'll always recycle our artists to go on to next projects. And, you know, that is true for some of the artists that are working for them, but for the most part, like, a lot of artists still just get laid off because they just don't find a project for them to move on to, or maybe the artists are out of budget. And nowadays people are more transparent with how much they are going to pay you, because I think at least in California, it's a law now to have pay transparency on the job listing. And I noticed that most of the rates these days are a bit lower than what they used to be for certain positions. So yeah, a lot of the recruiters and people in HR in the beginning may boast about, you know, oh, we're a company that has stability, but you know, no one can really promise stability at the end of the day other than yourself. And, you know, once you're in those gap periods between jobs, it's really up to you to sort out what your next step is in your career, your life, and your finances. I think a lot of people get into animation thinking that it's a dream job, and for some people it is, but I think for a lot of artists out there, it just ended up being a label of what would be a successful career decision instead of what you actually wanted to do. Like for me, I actually realized this when I was a kid. It wasn't like I watched Disney movies and was like, oh, I want to do exactly that. If anything, I watched Disney movies, but I also read a lot of manga. I also played a lot of video games. And I would say I even read manga more than I watched anime, to be honest. So at the end of the day, I feel like I really enjoyed comics and video games as a kid more so than I did of watching like a feature-length film and thought, oh, I need to direct the next big hit of a movie. But I only gave myself that label of thinking, oh, my dream is to work in animation because once I was in high school and you needed to make decisions about your future and your life, like the only closest thing to anything I wanted to do was working in the American entertainment industry. I definitely remembered there was a part of me during my college application days that was really sad that I would have to give up drawing in a more anime-influenced art style and start leaning more into the Western art styles, because I personally preferred anime styles more as a kid, obviously, because there were more nuanced emotions, complex topics, less hand-holding of storytelling that I enjoyed. Whereas, you know, I still love like, you know, a lot of Western animation, by the way, so don't get me wrong, but like, I just feel like my natural gravitation was towards anime and manga, and then Western movies and shows, I just was like, okay, like I'll check it out. And my inclination to go watch it was a little bit more, slightly more out of obligation. So yeah, as I realized that, that's why, you know, I never put all my eggs in one basket, and I explored, you know, publishing my own graphic novel, which was a great experience, and I plan to continue doing that, and I want to continue making my own comics on Instagram. But at the end of the day, I would say like, sure, I think a lot of you who watch my videos do follow me for like animation advice or like breaking into the industry as a storyboard artist, but a lot of people ultimately find me or discover me through my comics that I post on Instagram. And at the end of the day, what I really like doing is just being able to tell my own stories. And I think comics are just one of the more tangible ways of doing that. So yeah, I just realized that, you know, I still would want to be a part of working in the animation industry and contributing to animation projects. It's just that I realized that the job itself is a label I just decided to put on myself because I had to as I grew up and needed to make career decisions, you know? So then the next point is, unfortunately, working in the animation industry kind of made me feel a little bit more apprehensive to watching animated content these days, which again, it's not like working in animation just forced me to stop watching animated shows. It's just, I think every artist faces this at some point where the thing that you end up doing work for is a thing that you just don't want as much exposure of during your downtime or your free time, because it's like literally, at least when I was in the office, like half of your time is just spent looking at your own boards, rewatching the same episode of a show through the form of an animatic to make sure that things are playing out as planned. You're overly analyzing each shot, each sequence, which honestly is a fun job. Like, I appreciated my time working there. But the sacrifice of that is that during your free time now, you're just like, wow, I can't help but watch a show and just keep critiquing it or analyzing it instead of just enjoying it. And then when you think about talking about movies or shows you like, you're then overly conscious about how people are gonna perceive you based on what you like, because if I liked a movie or show that wasn't really the best cinematically directed movie or show, it looks like I have poor taste, when honestly, at the end of the day, I just want to like a show or film just because maybe the timing of it, watching it in my life was good. Maybe it just was a funny show that really uplifted me during a downtime, which is really what shows, movies, music, or any form of media is supposed to do for you. And I think once it becomes your profession, you need to have this critical reason for liking it, which I don't fully always agree with. Like, I don't think everything in life needs to be that deep. So yeah, I've been trying to repair my relationship with watching shows, films, and playing games and listening to music again without that critical voice in my head. And don't even get me started with like amusement parks. Like, I have not been to Disneyland, Disney World, Universal Studios in like the past 7 years, because the last time I went was when I was interning at Disney Animation. I don't really have anything against the parks themselves. It's just, for some reason, I just don't really want to be surrounded by not just the crowds or whatever, but it's just like seeing like the characters from these movies and shows that I feel like are ingrained in my head for some reason. It's just like, I just want more distance from that these days, I guess. But I do want to go back to one of the theme parks one day, maybe just when I'm not as associated with that world as much, I guess. But yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm antagonizing the animation community, because it's not the artists or anything that I have anything against. Like, I feel like the artists are the people that are underappreciated and need more appreciation. But like, maybe that's the thing, is like going to these parks, I see how much of this is all due to the designers of certain characters that the world loves. I feel like don't get the appreciation they deserve. And then you go to this theme park where, you know, the designs of all the characters are just everywhere. And I just think like, oh, these artists deserve so much more. But then you're here and reminded that they aren't getting what they deserve. And I don't know, I'm starting to rant, but yeah. Anyway, the last thing that I will say about what the animation industry has ruined for me is that now it's almost impossible to leave the animation industry or community, I will say, and not in a bad way. I will say this one is a good note. I think at the end of the day, while there are all of these layoffs and AI things happening, and seeing a future in the animation industry does not look as clear as it was before, I will say the thing that makes it strong is really the people and the artists and the community, and most of my friends and acquaintances are from that world, and I really only love it because of them. I don't love it because of like the executives greenlighting the shows, you know? And while I talk about things like pursuing an independent route as an artist and like doing my own business stuff, which, you know, is great, I feel like, you know, I don't have to fully leave the community just because I'm doing those things. So really the only reason why I feel like I'm still here is because, yes, I think there is still hope for the animation industry because that community is so strong and people show up for positive change, whether it be supporting the union, helping out other artists in their community, or just helping other artists through their own work. So yeah, the animation industry ultimately ruined me because I am now handcuffed to probably one of the most amazing community of artists I've ever met, in which, you know, I won't complain about that handcuff, but I'm just like, God damn it. You guys make it harder for me to really want to go fully independent, which is why I probably swing back and forth a lot between doing my own thing and then it's like, oh, here's this animation project that wants me to do this. At the end of the day, like, has the animation industry like really ruined me? Like, no. But it has definitely affected the way I work as an artist, because even outside of things I mentioned, you know, being a storyboard artist has a lot of specific rules to being one, and it really affected the ways that, you know, I approached making comics or doing my own personal art. And I just really had to eventually get that voice out of my head to stop thinking that every piece of art I do is going to be reviewed by a director or something like that, or stop making art based off of storyboard rules. Even though I will say a lot of storyboarding tips have helped me improve as an artist, but it's now like, okay, there's a time and place for certain rules, and here's a time to maybe not listen to them as much. So yeah, the animation industry has really affected the ways that I approach my art and live my life as an artist. Has it been like always bad? No. But has it always been great and perfect either? Like, no, it's a pretty gray area, which is probably why I colored this whole thing in gray. But yeah, it's like, for some people, some of the things I say maybe benefit them, and for some of the things I say, maybe it worsened their art. So it's really dependent on every artist's experience. But yeah, maybe if you're an artist, you related to some of the things I said, maybe not. But yeah, also I just realized that this whole time I was only able to get this one page done, but that's why it's really hard for me to do any drawing and talking videos. I still have like all of these spreads that I did from my Japan trips, which, you know, there's no need for me to color all of them. If this was the one that I wanted to color for today, that's all I needed to do. And yeah, other than that, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.